Welcome to Kubefirst Live. The show about everything cloud native. Like I was just thinking about all the episodes we had so far, and yes, we had a lot of episodes that were like really focused about Kubefirst, but we had so many guests, interesting guests, sharing about their great cloud native technology and things running on Kubernetes that like I think now it's still Kubefirst Live, but like it's a cloud native show. It's not just like a Kubefirst show. But with that said, today is all about Kubefirst, but that's gonna be I know. I start every show by saying I am excited, and it's true every time. And maybe I'm someone who get excited about everything and anything, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's because every time we have some nice topic, but today it is something dear to my heart. It is a 2.3 release. It is out there. We made it, folks. We made it. We sweat. We worked hard. We worked for a long time. People were waiting for it, but we finally released 2.3, which is, let's be honest, it's one of our biggest release since probably the inception, like probably the day one of Kubefirst. Like, would
Yeah,
you agree,
no
John?
kidding. Yeah, it has been a dream of ours since we started the project 4 years ago to get this particular feature set included on the platform. Cluster management, not just any old cluster management either. Cluster management means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We're not just shipping empty clusters to you. These are fully hooked in, fully automated, GitOps created, GitOps integrated, secrets integrated, workload clusters that you get to very, very easily adjust and provision for your organization. So excited to talk about it today. But more than anything, just excited for our team hitting this milestone. It's been something we've been driving toward forever, and to finally hit the finish line with an MVP release feels really good. So
It is, and you know what? Like that release is so big, and I know it's a minor version, but like in my heart again, it's a 3.0. Like it's a major version, it's a major release because we had so many things. So today we're gonna tell you a little more about what's new. I know some of you are pretty amazing. Like you're looking closely at our main branch and you know what's coming up and you want to try things. So some of you were expecting that release for a while. Some other people were looking for the feature we just introduced, but like that's a big release. So let's stop blabbering about the fact that we're excited about it. Let's jump right into it. What's new with 2.3? What's the big buzz around 2.3?
Man, 2.3 was crazy. We introduced a lot of different things. We went from, throughout our history, Kubefirst has been in the business of creating your initial starting point cloud native platform. That's the way it's always been. That was sort of the vision behind it. From the start, we wanted to be able to, from scratch, and in basically any cloud or any environment, we want to be able to create immediate cloud native value for businesses. Now, we want to do it in a way that is opinionated enough to be fast, but once provisioned, we absolutely require it to be flexible enough to adhere to not our opinions about what a cloud native platform needs, but your opinions about what a cloud native platform needs. So for our whole project's history, we've been creating this cluster. It's just like this Kubefirst cluster was how we talked about it for a long time. And we didn't really talk about it this way with a lot of regularity because we didn't have this cluster management feature. But really what we've been doing when we've been creating these clusters on Kubefirst is we've been creating a management cluster. And that's how we'll refer to this particular cluster type architecturally. It's a management cluster. It's got your centralized tools. It's got your CI/CD capabilities. It's got your users. It's got your infrastructure as code, and it's capable of provisioning whatever you need, wherever you need it. You can provision cloud resources in clouds that we don't even naturally support. You can create rules in SaaS applications that we don't have any business touching. You can do so many different things once you have a management cluster, because we give you this opinionated cluster that has all of these foundational elements. You need infrastructure as code. You need to have the infrastructure as code automated. You need to have secrets management. You need to have an Ingress story. You need to have a user story. You have to have OIDC. You have to have single sign-on. You have to integrate that with all of your tools. You have to do all of this stuff just to establish your cloud native platform. But that's not really the goal. The goal is to be able to frictionlessly create environments, clusters, application delivery. And that's what this new 2.3 feature set is going to be starting to provide for our users. We're going to be able to create that same old management cluster that you've always gotten from Kubefirst with automated IAC, with all the bells and whistles that we always talk about. But we're also going to include in that cluster a new console application version that's capable of provisioning downstream physical and virtual Kubernetes clusters, which is really super cool. That means that you can create dev clusters, stage clusters, prod clusters, demo clusters, developer clusters for your development teams, for hackathons.
Everybody got clusters.
Everybody gets a cluster. Exactly. So we're really excited about that. We had to introduce Crossplane to the management cluster in order to power the delivery of the cluster management feature set. So Crossplane is now a core feature, a core product on the Kubefirst platform. We're real excited about that too. We're, a YAML shop, and Crossplane adheres to GitOps and YAML oriented delivery really, really well. We found some neat ways to integrate it with Terraform. So people that are used to Terraform already that want to start getting into the Crossplane space, we provide a really nice and easy way to bridge that gap between what you're used to in Terraform and what maybe you've been wishing you could transition to in GitOps, but didn't really know the right patterns and the right way to put the technologies together. So we'll show a little bit of that today.
And what does that mean for the user? The fact that we're using Crossplane, it's mostly like something under the hood, like it's to provide the platform to the users. But like, is there any other benefits? Like, has someone creating a cluster? Like, what does that mean to me that now Kubefirst is using Crossplane?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Fred. So it means a couple things. One, in terms of the resources that are required to create a new cluster, to create a new physical cluster or a virtual cluster, the IAC that's going to create those clusters will be managed by Crossplane. Now, historically in Kubefirst, all of our Terraform has been managed by Atlantis. Atlantis is a high governance, really nice workflow engine so that you can easily see plans and inspect the plan to make sure that it's going to do what you want it to do and then apply it. And it's a great workflow for example, if you wanted developers to be able to contribute to your infrastructure as code story, but you didn't necessarily want to give them access to your cloud. It solves a lot of great problems like that. But we wanted something that didn't have a human involved. And Atlantis just naturally does have a human involved. But when we provision clusters or deprovision clusters, we still want that IAC-backed implementation. We want it stored in a state store. We want that redundancy of repeatability, that good disaster recovery posture. But we don't want a human reviewing the change set. We will trust that the Kubefirst engine is going to hydrate Crossplane correctly so that you can create your new clusters and you can tear down your Kubefirst clusters. So that's the long and short of it. Now, you can also use Crossplane for other stuff, though. Like, we happen to use a lot of Terraform and Kubefirst internally, but you don't have to. If you ever have a need for an S3 bucket for a particular application, it's so easy to just create a Crossplane CRD object, drop it in your GitOps, and magically an S3 bucket's going to appear. There was no Atlantis, there was no burdensome workflow about it. It's just, as soon as there's a resource in a particular directory, if Argo CD is watching it, Crossplane is going to pull that in and apply that to the to whatever space it is that you're applying IAC. So we love Crossplane. We're excited to see the direction that takes on the Kubefirst platform overall. It seems like it could eventually be a nice alternative to Terraform. It kind of has some weird overlaps with Terraform. It can both run Terraform, but it can also replace Terraform. So we think it's a really neat technology and super GitOps oriented. So we like it for that reason.
And that's good because like Atlantis is not going away right now, so people can still, like, when you do a change, you have someone to review with. You're going to use Atlantis, so you're going to have like your history about what happened and what changes. So like it's still there. So right now it's really under the hood. And people that want to know more about Crossplane, go check on their YouTube channel. And I know there's a link at the screen now that you're gonna have to type the UUID. So maybe just go to the YouTube channel. And we did one. I was looking at the date in August where we talked a little bit about like Terraform with Atlantis and like comparison with Crossplane. So if you want to know more about that, please go there. And I would like to, before we move to the next episode, I would like to just say hi to Patrick. Patrick, we are also happy that the release is out. Thanks. Happy about that. And for those of you wondering what's the blue thing walking behind me, it's my cat. They got surgery, got tooth removed. Now she had like the cone of shame. Poor little girl. But anyway, I was just like, I saw this. I saw her walking behind me and I was like, what it is? Oh, yeah, my cat. And say hi to 91 Johnny John. Hi to all of you. Hi to you also. Thanks for joining in. And we also have a question from Aski Dormi. Sorry about that. Hello, sorry for bothering you. You are not bothering us. So let's start with that. You are not. I want to. Oh God, yeah, it's exactly. I should probably read. I should probably read before publishing the comment. There was some spam on it. So actually, you know what? You are bothering us.
That's fun. That's fun.
So with that said, John, we were talking about, management cluster and you've been GPOs. Yeah, totally. I was like, the beginning of the comment was so nice. I was like, yeah, no, you're not bothering us. Like, we're here to answer a question. And the question was just too long. I didn't read it before putting it up there. So, hey, free promotion for that company that annoy us during the live stream. So with that said, John, we're talking about management cluster. And as you said, like, it was kind of like always a management cluster that we're creating without all the management function that we now have. Obviously, you could use it like as a workload cluster, but now we have like a clear difference between the first cluster that we create with you when you use 2.3.x. You are creating your management cluster, but we are also creating 3 virtual workload cluster. So let's put the virtual aside for now, but I just want to like okay, what's the workload cluster? Because I know some people in the community were curious about like, what is it exactly? And what's the difference with the management cluster?
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you asked that. Thanks, Fred. So a workload cluster can mean a lot of different things. To Kubefirst, what it means is you have your management cluster. That's your central hub for all of your architecture and all of your operations. And when you get into different organizations of different sizes with different team distributions, what you find is that companies need different types of clusters. Sometimes they'll need a type of cluster that's particular because it needs to be placed in a really high compliance environment. And it has some particular set of ingredients that make it compliant in that type of an environment. Sometimes it might just be as simple as, hey, we're a big company. We have a mobile team, we have a front end team, and we have a back end team, and none of them really work with each other. They're all separate teams. They have separate products. We all get together for a big major release where it all goes in unison every once in a while. But for the most part, the teams are working in isolation from one another. When you get into an organization that has a distribution of teams that size, generally that's when platform engineering starts to really take form, because you need something at the center that accommodates the needs of your security, of your SRE team, and accommodates the business needs of the organization, while the application teams are building the apps that are going to power their system, their production system, whatever they're building. So a workload cluster to us is just those clusters, whatever that means to different people. It could be that you're creating a cluster for data warehousing. It could be that you're creating an individual cluster that's going to be isolated just for your open source CI that you need to execute. It could be that you need a development, a staging, a production cluster with some isolation between them. It could be a mobile team versus a desktop team. So there's all kinds of different reasons. Every time that we refer to one of those categories, we call it a workload cluster. So in the 2.3 release, what we're doing is introducing these new templates that represent workload clusters, and you can create and extend and change what these templates are. And what you'll find in the clusters that we create is that they don't create like clusters that are identical to your management cluster. That would be ridiculous. The management cluster has all of this stuff in it, like IAC and Atlantis and Crossplane and CI/CD and whatever else. But your workload clusters don't need all that stuff. And generally speaking, you want your workload clusters to be as slim as possible and as replaceable as possible. So they do have tools like Ingress Nginx, Cert Manager, external DNS, kind of the core foundational tools that like every cluster just benefits from having. But you won't find anything in it that has to do with GitHub or GitLab or Crossplane or anything like that, because that's the responsibility of the management cluster. These workload clusters are just to serve apps, workloads, whatever that means to your company. I lost your mic, buddy.
Technology is very, very hard.
It's so difficult.
Muting, unmuting, so complicated. I was just telling John before the show, because that happened when we were testing your mic. They're like, I need that big red light on my desk that tell me when I'm muted, because I have something in my menu bar, it just doesn't make it. On that note, thanks, Patrick. That's the sweetest of a live stream. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. And Alec joining us. Good morning for you. It's good afternoon for us, but good morning for you, or good evening, or even good night if you're crazy enough to watch your live stream and it's the nighttime for you. So yeah, Alex, super active in the community also. Thanks for bug reporting and helping us. So it's great to have passionate people part of the community, to be really maybe that's going to sound cheesy, but it's impossible for us to build that platform without the support of a lovely community like you are. So privileged to be here. John, you were talking about management cluster. You barely touch about environment, the concept of environments that were introduced. I mean, it was a little bit there before, when we were having different YAML file that we're deploying in the GitOps repo, but now it's a full-fledged environment management that we just added in 2.3.
That's a really good call out. You're right. So we always used to ship the Kubefirst platform, and still do. We ship it with a sample application code base called Metaphor. It's just a tiny little React app, and it shows you how to integrate with external secrets and Ingress Nginx and external DNS, and how to run Argo workflows in order to power an Argo CD. So it's just kind of a rudimentary, simple little application, but very real and foundationally satisfying to people that are trying to find their way in GitOps and Kubernetes and cloud native and everything. And historically, and we continue to have that application set up so that it'll build the containers, it'll build the Helm chart, and then it'll GitOps deliver that Helm chart in a promotional way to a development, staging, and production environment. Now, that used to just be a namespace in your management cluster. What we're introducing with 2.3 is when we give you a management cluster, we're going to give you 3 virtual clusters that live inside that management cluster They're individual, isolated workload clusters, fully S3, K3S powered Kubernetes clusters that have just the tiny ingredients that you need to be a workload cluster. And we build the Metaphor application, and we've integrated it with virtual clusters to give our users like a real example of how they can host applications inside these virtual clusters. And you can even extend it so that the Metaphor application delivers to your physical clusters as well. It's very easy to do. We'll walk through a little bit of that today on demo.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you keep dropping the word virtual clusters, and like, what the heck is that?
What the heck is a virtual cluster? It's crazy. We didn't know anything about it until our community brought it to our attention. And it's the technology that we're using is from LoftSH. It's this tech called vCluster. It's a Helm chart. You can install it. You can install it via manifest or customize or Helm or whatever. And basically, if you install this vCluster technology into your cluster, then you can also add a CRD to your cluster that represents a virtual cluster. And it does this really super powerful thing where it creates, you create a namespace, you add a vCluster to this namespace, and it hydrates that namespace inside your existing cluster with a new master control plane with n number of nodes, however many nodes you want. And they truly are obviously virtualized, but physical nodes that house your Kubernetes cluster components. And you can terminate the node and practice what happens when you terminate nodes in a 2-node environment or a 3-node environment or a 5-node environment or whatever. You can sort of use these virtual cluster environments for a lot of different purposes. The ones that I'll call out is if multi-tenancy is really important to you, virtual clusters is a really nice low-cost way to sort of guarantee yourself that cluster level isolation, so that you can kind of have a whole bunch of these clusters without a whole bunch of the cloud cost of running those clusters. So every time you have a new Kubernetes cluster in the cloud, you have to provision, network space and a master control plane for the cluster itself. And then you have to attach nodes to it. And you probably have to have some kind of S3 for backing and PVCs and whatever. When you're running as a virtual cluster instead of a physical cluster, you get to take advantage of the fact that you're already in a network, that you're already in a master control plane space. And really all you have to do is establish a namespace there within to house whatever you want. And then you interact with this new virtual cluster just as if it was a regular physical cluster. You get a new kubectl config file. And when you kubectl get pods, you'll find that there's only like 10 tiny little pods in there for a workload cluster, where in our management cluster, there's like, 100 pods or whatever. So we'll show a little bit of that. I'm sure it'll make a lot more sense when it's up on screen, but virtual clusters are super cool for multi-tenancy, for data warehousing, for machine learning types of environments. Really, anytime you need to be able to do the same thing at a Kubernetes level over and over and over again, but want to reduce your costs and keep it contained within a singular master Kubernetes cluster. It's a pretty neat paradigm that we're introducing with it.
Yeah, and right now with 2.3, vCluster, if I'm not wrong, is available on all clouds.
That's right. Yep.
That's right. And for the people, like, we're going to demo a little bit about it, but like, if you want to know more, guess what? We did a live stream where we talk about vCluster. So go check the link or go on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more. Just thinking about our history of live stream length, it was probably an hour around vCluster. So you got to get a lot more information you're going to get today about vCluster.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Like as John said, like it's a really neat feature. So John, like, we introduced a lot of things. We introduced like the possibility to create multiple cluster, having or kind of quote unquote real management cluster, having now workload cluster for 2.3. Until now, I think we were like at 2.3.0. We did some patch release recently. Physical cluster is available only on Civo. Virtual cluster is available on all the clouds right now, but it's only the beginning, meaning that like in future release, like sooner than later, we're gonna have that support of like multiple cluster, multi-cluster, and also physical cluster, workload cluster in the other clouds. With that said, right now we're kind of like offering those for free, but like there's also the introduction of a pro tier, and I think it's important that we're being transparent with people about what does that mean for the future, what does that mean for now, what's going to happen if I use the feature now, and in the future you really start to introduce the pro tier, because now we're starting to talk about it. We're telling you like what's going to happen, but like we are not there yet where we're not charging yet for those features. So what's going to happen, John? Please, I need to know now.
I need to know now too. The world needs to know, Fred. So yeah, just to calm any nerves, whenever the word monetization comes up in open source projects, it's always a dirty word and everyone freaks out. I just want to be really clear with our audience that the Kubefirst open source platform that we have built forever will remain open source. That platform is the foundation of everything that we do. And our commercialization strategy that we're introducing with the Pro tier is going to be focused on convenience features and management features of that platform and its resources. So the platform, the management cluster installation, you can always bank on the fact that you'll be able to install those. It'll be free. It'll be open source. And if you don't want to use our user interface and you don't want to pay for a product at all, you just want to power your platform with a great open source platform that's supported by a really great community and whatever. We think that we've fit that bill really well from an open source platform standpoint. On top of that, we're still going to have a user interface, and a lot of that user interface is going to be available on the community tier. So even if you want to be a free user of Kubefirst forever, you'll still be able to use a lot of the user interface functionalities. There's just certain functionalities that we're going to start to paywall for with the introduction of cluster management. Our plan is to introduce it with physical clusters being behind the paid tier, but virtual clusters being free to everyone forever. So that's our goal. We have a new pricing page up on our site. If folks want to go check that out, we're breaking down sort of what elements of the platform we have our eye on for monetization possibilities. And beyond all else, we want to hear feedback from the community on our direction and where we're going and what would be valuable to add to the Pro tier and what would turn you into a Kubefirst customer. We've obviously poured our hearts into building a really great open source foundation. And now it's time for us to sort of turn this thing into a company and build something on top of it that's really valuable to our end users. So.
Yeah, and just a side note, so the pricing page is not up yet.
Is that right? It's probably today.
Yeah,
then. Yeah,
that's gonna be there really soon. I think we just had like to check some like small details before publishing it. So that kind of like answer and not answer your question, Johnny John. Any idea about the price tier? Already, is it live now? I think someone just put it live now.
Yeah, I can speak to it.
Awesome.
We're targeting for physical clusters. It'll be we're not going to nickel and dime you on the size of the clusters or how tall or how wide or how many CPU cycles or anything like that. It's just going to be high watermark on the number of physical clusters that you're running concurrently. So whatever that high water mark is over the month, that's what the bill would be at 200 per cluster per month. And with that said, again, virtual clusters will be free for everyone forever. And if you want to just choose to not use our user interface, that's available to you as well. If you want to build your own portals, by all means, I think it's a really great foundation to build a portal on top of.
So actually, I was wrong. The page is live. I just don't see it in the top menu.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
I assume it was not live. So we're gonna add it in the menu, so it's easier. It's easily to access it. With that said, John, so what's going to happen right now if I'm using the multi-cluster with Civo with 2.3, and we did not enforce the paywall? So
Fred,
like,
I should take you everywhere with me. I swear. I start these conversations and then I just start talking about stuff that's fun to my brain, and I forget the point of the question. And you're always there to bring me back down to earth and ask the real question. So somebody installs Kubefirst today. We're releasing 2.3 today with no prices, no credit card swipers, no nothing. We're just looking for community feedback on how the functionality works and whether you like it and what's wrong about it and what's right about it. We really just want as much feedback as we can. Now, in the coming months, we anticipate introducing a license model for the physical cluster feature, and our pricing page will show you the other components that we're thinking of introducing, but introducing behind that paid tier. So take a look at our pricing page. Definitely give us as much feedback as you're comfortable giving about our prices and our architecture and the way that we're setting up cluster management and how it could work better for your organization. We're trying real hard to hit this one perfect. So
yeah, and I think, and maybe I'm preaching for my own thing, but you know how I'm critical about things we do, and I'm
Fred? No.
Yeah.
No.
I can be really good, but it's always done with passion. It's always done because I care and because I really don't mind to like say shit when we need to say it.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy with like the way we go in terms of like pricing and going commercial. I'm also like, I'm a huge fan of like anything open source, but like open source doesn't mean free. Like if you go look at the definition, but like we still keep the open source part free, which is amazing. But at the same time, you know what? Reality catch up. Like we need to pay stuff, and we need to like pay mortgage and stuff and have our salary. So at some point we need to make money, and I think we found the right balance for that. And it is pretty good because I think Alec is agreeing with me. So big fan of infrastructure as code-driven free open source software. So also a big fan of companies behind these projects being able to support themselves. Based on what you said, sound like you're balancing these two concerns well. We hope so. So as John said, if you have any comment about or pricing structure, if you have any worries about like, okay, what's happening now, what's happening in the future, as always, either ask the question right now because you're here, or if you don't want to ask publicly or you're watching the recording, the place to go is our Slack community. You can ask directly in the Helping Hands channel, or you can DM me directly, or John or Jared, and we're going to be more than happy to answer your question or any concern you have. And John, we talked a lot, so I really would like us to go to the demo, but right before we do that, there's something that is also, I'm going to use the word close to my heart quite often in this live stream, but what happened to the CLI? I'm a CLI person. I'm a terminal person. Something happened to the CLI that, like, it was funny because all the team checked with me if I agree, like, with the change to the CLI. Like, will we hurt, like, Fred's feeling like the CLI person? And I was like, no, I'm totally in. Like, we need to streamline the code. We need to make it more, like, easy, like, it's easier for us to maintain, and that's still gonna give like even a better experience to the user. So we did some stuff to the CLI. The output is different, and ends of screen is different. For me, it feels like the experience is better too. So what happened?
Yeah, no, it was man, the 2.3 release was enormous, wasn't it? Yeah, the CLI overhaul. The CLI has been an ever evolving part of our story. You have to start somewhere, and CLIs are great at doing that. It started out, our CLI used to be a bash script way back when. It evolved, it turned into a
Oh yeah.
Golang CLI. It evolved further and was able to create a K3D cluster that could house some stuff in it so that you could have a platform. Then it evolved further where that stuff that was in that K3D cluster could be Kubefirst's installer. And now it has evolved one step further. And that new evolution is that we have a challenge on our hands in terms of provisioning your management cluster. It's a complicated operation. It is subject to all kinds of bumps in the road. You could have Terraform providers that just don't download for 3 minutes and then they do. You could have DNS propagation that's suddenly slow. You have to get certificates from third parties. You have to provision infrastructure in clouds. You have to bootstrap that infrastructure and those clusters with apps. There's a lot that can go wrong. And getting an engine that's capable of accommodating all of those, being tolerant of all of those potential bumps that can happen during provisioning operations requires a lot of just like raw code logic. And we had a whole lot of it in the CLI. And then we had a whole lot of pretty identical looking code over in the API. Now the API is running in Kubernetes. That's how we're building the Kubernetes Helm chart, the Kubefirst Helm chart. And the Kubefirst Helm chart is going to deliver a set of a front end and a back end API that can create downstream management clusters or workload clusters, depending on what you need and where you are. The CLI was also capable of doing that, but we had an opportunity and we took it to eliminate all of the logic from the CLI and set the CLI up in a way where it can take advantage of our API. Now, what that means is that when you run the CLI today, unlike all our history before, you're no longer running the CLI. It's not executing truly from your host on your laptop. It's running from within a K3D cluster that we add to your laptop. And that changes a few things architecturally about what is and isn't possible. We had to make a couple accommodations here and there. For the most part, it should be a very, very similar experience. But the long story short is we were able to get rid of half of our code. We're so excited to have that time and energy back. We were kind of in a circumstance where when you would have a bug on one side, you would fix it and then it would break the other side. And it was just like, it was a mess. So we streamlined everything. We're focusing on Kubernetes. We're getting more Kubernetes native with our architecture. And the CLI changes that we made are indicative of that. We also introduced Bubble Tea. Bubble Tea is a nice CLI component built by SoftServe, I believe, or Charm Bracelet. Charm Bracelet, great open source company. They've got some really cool projects. Bubble Tea is their CLI component that we added. So it's got a new look and feel a little bit when you start running Kubefirst commands. So if you see anything weird that comes out of that, we're all ears on it. It's all brand new. So
I like it. It's for me. There's like don't get me wrong. I like the previous CLI output that we had, but it feels a little more modern when you use the CLI. And as far as I know, the big change for users about that is that instead of like using launch up to create new cluster using the console application, as John said, you have the kind of like the same experience happening behind the hood when you use directly the CLI with the create command. So the difference for you is that now, even if you use the CLI, you're going to need to have Docker to be able to install the CLI. And at the end, you may have to destroy those key 3D cluster with the destroy the cloud destroy command. But like as far as I know, that's like the big difference we have. And speaking about key 3D, I did not forget about that. The Romy Floyd, who said key 3S will come soon because we have amazing community, and Romy Floyd is contributor. He's working on adding key 3S support to the Kubefirst platform. So thanks for doing that. And yeah, no pressure. You do this when you have time, and if you need help, as always, let us know. And right before we jump in the demo, we also have a question from Jeremy Floyd, who is asking, will it still stay on Vault OIDC, or will it change to something else like Authentic? And I assume it's coming from a licensing point of view, I guess.
Yeah. So we are planning on staying on Vault OIDC. Although internally, we're having a lot of conversations about a bring your own OIDC provider story that we might add to the Pro tier. So that would allow you to exchange your Vault OIDC providers that we give you from a Kubefirst install and swap that out for like Google OIDC, or GitHub or GitLab OIDC. And truly, if we do it for one OIDC, I think that we're going to get it right so that it works for all the OIDCs. So stay tuned on that story. That's probably a little ways out before we start entertaining adding that. I wouldn't anticipate that we'd be able to get to that for the next 2 or 3 months. But that is something that we're talking through internally.
Yeah, because you know what, like we released 2.3, but like we have so much work to do. I mean, like we need to have like that multi-cluster on the other cloud, and I'm still gonna be annoying with the engineering team with that. But like, I want those clouds out of beta. I want those
out of beta. Get them out of beta.
Google Cloud out of beta. So we have a lot of work on our plate. But the good thing is that, like, all the team is really excited about what we do. We really love our product, so I think that makes our life easier. Even if we know like we have like mountains of things we want to have for our users. So with that said, let's stop. Let's stop discussing things and let's show things like how it's working.
Let's do it.
We are tech people. We want demo. We want to see how it's working.
That's right. Let me present my screen. And
so while John is sharing his screen, go on Kubefirst, homebrew, update your stuff, upgrade to the latest version, and you can try the exact same thing at home.
Thank you, Fred. So I'm kind of dropping you into an after the fact view. So creating a Kubefirst cluster, your management cluster, is pretty easy. You download our CLI and you run Kubefirst launch up. Or you can just Helm install Kubefirst to an existing cluster that you already have. There will be a service in there that you connect to, and that gives you this cluster zero management interface that allows you to create that initial management cluster. You go through, you give it information about your Git provider, information about your cloud provider, and what DNS you want to attach it to, and you hit a go button. About 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, you get to 100% on this screen here, the provisioning screen. And you can see from the execution, everything that's happened in this cluster. Like you can see as we're going through and executing Terraform, the Terraform output that executes. We also have a nice concise view over here. If you're not interested in the gory details about your IAC provisioning and you just want to know how far along you are, we have a nice compact view there as well. But your goal is to get this thing to 100%. Every once in a while, you'll hit a bump in the road. If you see an error, there's usually a retry button right here. And if you click it, maybe you'll get lucky and you can just get past it. Otherwise, we have a great community and you can ask any question you want and we'll help you get through it. But once you get to 100%, this next button right here opens up to you. And this new screen is telling you about your KBot password that you need. KBot is a user. It's an administrative user that we add to the platform to run as the bot for all of our systems when we're running, Atlantis and commenting on Terraform pull requests, or when we're executing CI in Argo workflows and committing changes to your GitOps repository or whatever it might be where there's a bot engine in play. It's the KBot user that's responsible for those bot activities. And when you do an Kubefirst install, that's the first user that you get. It's the only administrator, and it's up to you as that KBot user to onboard yourself and the rest of your team, and then you stop using the KBot user forever. So the KBot user is just a bot account. We have some docs on how to use it and whatever. But at the conclusion of a Kubefirst management install, you get to copy this password here for KBot, and you can open the Kubefirst console. Now, this is a new experience for our end users. Sorry, hop on in, Fred. What you got?
Yeah, I was just going to say that like if you use the CLI directly, this is an advantage of using the UI. You have that beautiful window, like giving you the KBot. If you use the CLI to create your cluster, you're going to have to retrieve the Vault token, admin token, root token to be able to log to Vault and retrieve the KBot password. So there's a little more step to do that. So you slowly moving me through the CLI to the UI with all those nice little features that looks like nothing, but are really useful.
The CLI was incredibly frictionless. Loved it. Want to continue to provide a frictionless CLI experience, but man, that UI experience is really, really nice. What the team's been up to. So certainly a good benefit to running a Kubefirst launch up instead of a Kubefirst create. It's a really new, nice new way to do things. So I'm going to click this login with Vault button. This is establishing authentication with your brand new Vault cluster. This cluster was created like an hour ago from scratch. I had nothing. I ran a single Go in the Cibo cloud. And just like that, everything that you're looking at here, I have not touched at all. It's just ready to go. So we're going to change this from token to username. It's token often by default. And type kbot as the username and paste that password from your Kubefirst console output right here. You're going to paste that right in there. And then it's going to let you into your new console application. Now, your new console application, it probably looks sort of familiar. It looks like it was built by our team. And you're probably already familiar with the services page if you've done Kubefirst installations before. This used to be where we would throw you once we finished that management cluster and there was no authentication in front of it. Now that this application is capable of provisioning infrastructure, we added auth in front of it. That authentication is powered by HashiCorp Vault. And we have this new cluster management screen up here, which is this really cool new way to get Kubernetes clusters. And this is the point of 2.3, and we are so excited about it. So we start out, Fred, with just a set of 3 example virtual clusters. We were talking about virtual and physical clusters a little bit ago. These are all virtual clusters. And you can see here that the development staging.
That's amazing. I love that UI so much.
The views are really just special to me. They are so good. So you can click these clusters and see some of their details about when they were provisioned and how many nodes they have and stuff like that. You can also see from this link here that they're bound to GitOps. So this is your GitOps repository. When you do, for any of our users that maybe haven't tested out, or new viewers that haven't tested out the Kubefirst platform before, the way our architecture works, when you do an install, we have this upstream GitOps template repo that we pull down, and then we hydrate it with all the details about your cloud and your Git provider, and where you want this thing placed and what domain you want it attached to. Then we hydrate this new GitOps repo, and then we give that right back to you. So right here, you can see this is a GitHub org that I've made up. It's called Kubefirst Boo. I'm getting in the spirit for Halloween. You like that, Fred? Yeah. All right, whatever. So
yeah, no, I was curious also about your domain name. I did not know that there's a TLD called Boo.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that either until today, but I needed a new domain, and we're right here around Halloween, and I thought to myself, you know what? We need a Kubefirst Boo for every late Halloween October. Yeah, everybody's in the spooky mood. We might as well just run with it, right?
That's awesome. You should see the list of domain we have. We need to be really creative because, with all those testing and like testing on different clouds and different like configuration for clusters, like we have a lot of domain names and we're always able to get like cool ones. So congrats on the
100%.
.boo one.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fred. We're going to be running on .boo domains for this entire demo, so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's spooky season. No pumpkin lattes though. That's out of bounds. So when you do an install, we give you these two Git repositories in your org. This is my Kubefirst Boo org, and you can see I've got a 1 hour old metaphor and GitOps repository in here. And wanted to quickly just take a look at the directory structure changes that we introduced with 2.3 cluster management. So everybody's familiar already with our registry directory. This is how everything GitOps is in the ecosystem. And it used to be that there was a clusters management only, or a clusters Kubefirst if you use the default name. Now there's going to be whatever you named your cluster, as well as a development, production, and staging directory. And these contain the tools that represent a workload cluster to you. Now, how do we create this is the $1 million question. And the answer is so cool. So in your GitOps repo, what you're going to get is these templates that are available. We have one template for a cluster, and we have one template for a V cluster. And they're basically identical the way we start you out. But you're free to do whatever you want in these directories so that you can create your workload clusters however you want to create your workload clusters. Keep them in your GitOps repository forever, and just be able to start treating your clusters as cattle the way that you likely want to if you're tuning into our show. So it's a really cool architectural paradigm. We have a handful of tokens that are available to you, so that, like, for example, if we look at, let's look at the components of a workload cluster. We'll look at, I don't know, cluster secret store. And if we look at this, you'll find that these are also tokenized. But unlike what we do with the GitOps template turning into your GitOps repository, where we detokenize all of those values, these are special workload tokens that are available to you for your provisioning operations when you're using the Kubefirst cluster management feature set. So long story short, if you have New Relic, if you have Datadog, if you have something, maybe a Prometheus stack, whatever it might be that you just always want in all of your clusters, the game is you go to this directory, you drop whatever Argo CD app or app of apps you want to be in all of your clusters. You can tokenize things like your cluster name or your environment name or other details like that, your domain name, etc. And every cluster that you provision, you'll have that opportunity to detokenize those values on the fly, so that you can always have just distinct enough infrastructure while maintaining super high levels of consistency of that infrastructure for the clusters that you create, with a really repeatable way of creating those clusters that have just really high disaster recovery and blah, blah, blah. So we're really excited about that. We think our users are just going to love being able to like edit the way that clusters are created and power their own ecosystems using this architecture.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I need to add some stuff in the documentation, because we talked a little bit about it, but like maybe I need like a list of like what can be tokenized and how it is exactly working. So I think it's brilliant, and it followed the Kubefirst philosophy, where we were trying to like create cluster that is always like you always end up with the same experience. So that's the same with your workload cluster. Like if every workload cluster you're creating, you need some basic stuff that always needs to be there. Like you're gonna be able to do that. But you talk about Datadog. like I think we wanted to install it to demo like how it's going to work, and to do that you're going to use one of my preferred feature of Kubefirst. It's not specific to the do the tree release, it's there for a while now, but I just love it, so that's cool that we can show it again.
Yeah, it's a great call out. Let's do. In order to sort of highlight some of the details about how vCluster works, we're going to install Datadog, but instead of just like kubectl applying it, we're going to use the GitOps catalog so that that application is bound to your GitOps and permanently available to you if you ever have a disaster and need to recreate your cluster. So we're going to go down here to Datadog and hit install. Now, Datadog happens to have 2 secrets in their configs. And anytime you have an app that you want to install through the GitOps catalog, you have an opportunity to identify what those secrets are, and that gives us a chance to request that input from the end user, and we'll bind that automatically to your HashiCorp Vault that runs in your management cluster, and then that's available to your application to pull via external secrets. So it's a really nice, tidy way to install complex applications in a really straightforward way. And the bonus is, for all our viewers that maybe you have your own applications out there or whatever, if you need to demo these things, or you need to be able to deliver these in a production ready way to different clouds or to local environments, the Kubefirst platform is the perfect vehicle to put that application on our GitOps catalog. And then you can always guarantee that your end users are going to be able to install new clusters and have that application running in those clusters. So,
and on top of that, you're going to have like the joy of probably working with me, because I'm probably going to be the one who's going to look at your PR. So, it's a win-win situation now.
That's right. That's right. So let's go ahead and close out of this old terminal. I will just grab my DD API key. I'll grab my app key first. Fine. Paste that there and grab my DD API key. These are just some aliases I happen to have so that I can do demos live. And you hit add, and that's it. You can trust that Datadog's going to go there, and it'll give you a notification. Once it's done, it's going to remove itself from the GitOps catalog page and move itself over to the services page. And in your GitOps repository over here, you can see right now that we just got a commit a second ago for a Datadog agent. So just doing that simple button click is all it takes to get Datadog into your ecosystem. You can see it in your management cluster now.
William saying it's super cool. So William, I don't know if you were talking about the things we just discussed or about the GitOps catalog. Let's just assume it was about everything we said before. And we agree. We agree.
That's right, William. We agree. Thank you so much. So we have, just to sort of finish painting the picture there, we have this management cluster. Now, because of the GitOps catalog, you also have this 1 minute old Datadog agent, and it just has the content that we said should be the default for Datadog agent that's hosted up in our GitOps catalog. So my particular opinion is that it's really good to identify what cluster your Datadog agent is running in so that you can identify that isolation at a cluster level. So to do that, I'm just going to uncomment some handy comments that we included in the GitOps template. And I named mine management. So I'm going to change my name to management there and there. And I'm also going to turn on logging just in case we need to look at anything today. And I'm going to leave the rest of that stuff alone. So let's update that, going straight to the main branch. And I can just let GitOps take care of the rest of that. Sooner or later, Datadog is going to go into the cluster, turn itself on, register itself with our Datadog SaaS implementation, and a bunch of stuff will light up. And hopefully by the end of this demo, we'll be able to see some of the things about the clusters that we're provisioning in 2.3. So next, I was hoping that we could go, just one quick call out. This is our old console.kubefirst.dev. This was from our cluster 0 that we created through a Kubefirst launch up operation. And it's missing all that stuff. If you're kind of like, hey, where's services and where is the GitOps catalog and where's my clusters? You're probably looking at your cluster 0 on your local host console.kubefirst.dev.
It's a good call out because we used to have like the service and the GitOps catalog in cluster 0, but we removed it to exactly remove that, like, hey, where am I right now? So
yeah,
now
exactly.
you know it's clearer.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's do some cluster management. That's the whole point, right? Let's get to it.
Do that.
So here's cluster management. We're going to start out by creating just and here, this heads up is just telling you that some of these features, namely this physical radio button, is a part of our anticipated pro tier. That doesn't mean don't use it. We won't bill you for using it now. We will make an announcement when we're introducing our paywalls, and at that point, we'll make it really clear to you what the rules are, and you'll you can still use this old version. But in any event, let's get a physical cluster created. Now, this is the environments that Fred was asking about just a little bit ago, and we also have this environment section where you can go and create environments and manage your environments. But it's also integrated with our cluster management page. So if you wanted to, for example, create a new physical cluster, let's call it demo. That's a good name. And we'll create a whole new environment for this called demo, demonstration environment. And
that's a good description.
Thanks, buddy. And you get to color code these things in case that's valuable to you. Maybe you can set up a system where, the orange ones have certain rules and the red ones have other rules or whatever. But they're kind of just arbitrary to help you get organized for right now. So I'm going to create a new demo environment. I'm going to create a new demo cluster. I'll actually call it demo cluster to distinguish between the environment name and the cluster. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing it for grokkability for this demo. And right now, just for everyone's clarity, these are on the UI, but they are not currently in use. The values on the back end aren't being received from the front end. They still start you out with physical clusters. You just have to edit a little bit of crossplane to get those numbers correct. Throughout the rest of the probably next month and a half, we had a whole bucket of features that we want in cluster management, but we were trying really hard to establish an MVP so that we could get it out and start collecting feedback while we work on those remaining features. So some questions that you'll have, I'm sure, is like, well, can we run in multiple clouds? Yes, eventually. Can we run workload clusters in multiple accounts in the same cloud? Yes, eventually. We have all these things that we want. We know that our users want it. We've been actively listening for years on this particular topic. So all those features and bells and whistles of being able to isolate accounts, of being able to run multi-cloud, those are on our roadmap. But we had to start somewhere, and this MVP is that somewhere. So we're going to continue to provide updates, but we really sincerely would love any feedback that you guys have on how this stuff works in the state that it's in.
And you know where you can give feedback, John?
Where can you get, Fred? No, I don't.
In the Slack community. That's the best place to give feedback.
What a good place for some feedback. Maybe a helping hands channel or something.
Yes, there's the helping hands channel, and you know what? It's a good place to make new friends. Trust me, I've done it.
So when I created that cluster right there, just a moment ago, we were looking at the GitOps cluster directory, and we saw that there was only a development, staging, production, and management. But we just created this new cluster, and if I refresh that page, now you'll see that we have not only those original 4 clusters, but we also have this demo cluster here that's been created. And that's how clusters get created on the Kubefirst platform with cluster management. All you have to do is get a commit into your ecosystem that looks exactly like, let's see, let's go back to GitOps to the commits. And if we look at this commit, This is what it takes to get a Kubernetes cluster in Kubefirst. Most of this is just GitOps stuff from that template, and pulling it in and hydrating it with details about your workload cluster name and what environment you want it attached to and stuff like that. But once this is in the main branch, which is exactly what that button does, is it places this detokenized template content into your clusters directory of your main branch. Once that happens, Argo CD wakes up and says, oh, I got a job to do. Looks like that job is creating a cluster. Let's apply some cross-plane CRDs. Let's apply some applications. Just like the management cluster, we have all of that orchestration of the Argo CD sync waves so that you get Ingress Nginx first, and then you get your external DNS, and then you get your cert manager, and then we follow through all the chicken and egg scenarios and make sure that they're all ironed out before we hand it back over to you and tell you that everything's good. Now, that particular cluster that we just created was a physical cluster, which means that in the Civo cloud over here, even though I only had a management cluster, if I refresh this, now I also have a demo cluster. This demo cluster was created just a second ago. And in Argo CD, we can probably still catch the provisioning of the applications onto that, that demo cluster. So let me pull up. Let me go graph view, development, no, not development, demo cluster. And no, I'm sorry, I want to go to Argo CD. So let me go services to Argo CD. And again, that auth that you just saw with HashiCorp Vault, that was because we single signed on into console. So just by signing into console, you'll gain access to console itself, HashiCorp Vault, Argo CD, Argo workflows, all the platform tools that integrate OIDC. Thank you, Fred. Yeah. And obviously, we've got a ton of apps up here. We're going to drop into clusters, which is how you find all of the clusters on the platform. And you can see that we've got this new registry demo cluster that's actively being provisioned. Looks like it's getting close. We have cluster. And you'll notice a couple references to Cloudflare here and there. We're introducing Cloudflare as a second DNS provider option to your cloud DNS. And we think that Cloudflare has the potential to serve as a really nice multi-cloud DNS ecosystem. So for anybody that's been interested in Cloudflare, we now support it natively on the system. There's a couple caveats. We're trying real hard to get all that documented in our docs, but long story short, Cloudflare works great today on root level domains. Subdomains, there's a detail in virtual clusters that we still have to get worked out. But as long as you're just on like a, acme.com or whatever type of domain, and you're not on a subdomain that's managed by Cloudflare, you can use Cloudflare as a DNS alternative to like Route 53 or Civo DNS or Vultr DNS or DigitalOcean DNS or whatever. You'll always have that Cloudflare as a second DNS option available. So we had to add a couple of Cloudflare components. We haven't gotten perfect at removing them, but they have no impact to any of the clusters, right?
And just point. Yeah, and just to be clear, it's like it is happening if you decide to use Cloudflare. By default, we're still using the cloud DNS.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So this cluster is fully complete. And if we go back over to our console app, this guy is fully available. And in the Civo cloud, it's fully up. And we could go over to this cluster and do a Civo Kubernetes config. And let's grab the name. It was called demo cluster. And if I kget pods -a, you can see that this thing has a handful of ingredients in it ready to run workloads for you. So it's got kube system, obviously. It's got reloader so that you can hot swap config changes or secret changes. external DNS, external secrets operator. This external secrets operator is pre-configured so that it integrates with your management cluster's vault. So your downstream workload clusters automatically have that detail work taken care of for them. They can just pull secrets out of vault. They're ready to go. It's a really nice paradigm in that regard. We got Cert Manager. We've got Ingress Nginx. So each one of our clusters, whether physical or virtual, they're always going to have their own pieces of these components. So they truly work like they are isolated, standalone Kubernetes clusters. They don't borrow resources from the management cluster, even though that is technically possible if you want to mess with it. We have, that's basically what you get. Now, alternatively, if we look at the management cluster, let me change my kubectl to management. And if I kget pods in here, wow, that's a lot more stuff going on. This is what you get when you have a management cluster. And this same representation in Argo CD could be found with a kget apps-a. And kget apps will show you all the Argo CD apps that are running in your management cluster. So obviously you can see just by perusing, if I change this from 10 to page to show me everything and break it down by list view and then zoom out as far as I can possibly go and then scroll down. We're talking about a lot of stuff that's automatic, that's all managed, that's all deliverable, that's all ready to tear down, ready to replace, ready to spin back up. So we hope that our users find all that automation and orchestration super valuable. And if we take a look real quick at the development virtual cluster that got created for you automatically by the Kubefirst platform, and to do that is a little different. So you just saw me run a couple Sivo commands in order to get my hands on some real physical Kubernetes clusters so that I can connect to them and run kget pods and see what's on them, right? Now, a virtual cluster works a little bit differently. In order to connect to a virtual cluster, you have to first be connected to your management cluster. So let's do that. I am connected to management. I just showed you that. Now that we're in management, if you kubens to the namespace of your cluster name. So in our case, I'm going to go to development. And if I kget pods in here, now this is a V cluster. This is
John, can you zoom a little bit?
Yes, of course.
Terminal.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, and speaking of your terminal, that was funny because at the same moment you didn't see it because you were demoing, but I was putting a banner saying like warning, John's terminal background color can hurt your eyes. And at the exact same time that I created that banner, I had Alec who was like, someone needs to submit a Riplet bug bounty to write a new terminal config for John. What in the neo green terminal am I looking at here?
Oh my God.
Hear you, Alec.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked.
Oh, you should. You should.
These colors are the only reason the Kubefirst works at all, I swear. So this namespace that we're looking at here, it's named development because we created a development virtual cluster in the management cluster. And if you take a look at the pieces that are in here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of resources for all of the tools, all of the pods that are running down in that isolated cluster. But how do you connect to that cluster? So if you kuben, or here, if you kget secrets, this will show you that there's this VC that stands for virtual cluster, and then whatever the name of your cluster was. So if you do VC development and we do kget secrets, VC, did I lose that command? Hang on. If I kget secrets, VC development, YAML. This has a handful of pieces in it. It has some details about cert authority, client keys. That's for communication with your Kubernetes master control plane. And then it's got a config section, and that section right there, if you were to copy that, and
do the biggest export ever you ever done. We don't see what you're writing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because of the StreamYard, you can click hide. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
What did you do just after the export?
That was
you base 64.
Just a base 64 decode of that secret. Yeah. So just to run that again real quick. This is a kubeconfig file. So if I took that same content and then put it in my local as we'll just call it dev.kubeconfig. So now I have this file here, and if I export kubeconfig equals /dev. What do I call it? Dev kubeconfig. Now when I kget pods-a, this is just a tiny little Kubernetes cluster that's living inside that management cluster. So if you ever had a need to give different teams clusters, and you just wanted to hand them a kubeconfig and say, this is your cluster, do whatever you want with it. You can install cluster-wide resources and it won't impact anybody else. You can install apps, and then we can throw the cluster away, and we never even had to provision any new infrastructure. All of this stuff is super valuable to a bunch of organizations. I know at machine learning shops, AI shops, warehousing shops, anybody that's doing a whole bunch of CI and needs isolation of those CI jobs because they're worried about the source being like an open source ecosystem, whatever. All of those types of environments are really, really great for vCluster in my mind. You could even run your development environment off of it and get away with just having that running in your management cluster at no extra cost to your organization from a cloud spend standpoint. So
that's pretty cool. I was funny enough, I was wondering this morning, like, how can I connect to a vCluster? And I was like, okay, I don't have time to like check it or ask question, and you answer my question during the live stream. So what a wonderful time.
There it is. The docs are writing themselves on this live stream, aren't they, Fred?
No, I know.
I know. I'm looking forward to them too. So let's quickly just take a look at the development namespace in the development cluster, because we just looked at the development namespace in the management cluster. But what's the development namespace in the development virtual cluster? So I'm going to kubens to development and kget pods in here, and it's just Metaphor. Metaphor is the only application that we delivered to the development namespace. Now in management, there's a whole bunch more stuff because it's got a master control plane. It's got all the mechanics of what it takes to have a cluster. That's all running in management truly. And this pod right here is also running in management truly. It's just from my standpoint as the owner of this kubeconfig file, I get to feel like I'm in my own isolated Kubernetes cluster because I am. I just happen to be sharing some hardware real estate with my management cluster. So I'm sure our community is going to find a whole bunch of new cool ways to use that. But we're really excited to be able to include virtual clusters on our community free tier of cluster management so that folks can take advantage of that. We would love any feedback on cluster management in that regard. It's also relatively new. So if you hit any bumps in the road, we'd love to hear about it. Don't be shy. We got thick skin and we want everything to work perfectly. So let's see, what else are we going to talk about, Fred? We looked at vClusters. We created a physical cluster. We pretty much nailed it.
We looked about a lot of things. I was just like, maybe before, like, is there something exciting we can show within Datadog, because we installed it at the beginning, and I feel like there is something cool we can show there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So this view that we're going to look at here, this is Datadog, and Datadog. We're not, trying to necessarily promote Datadog. We use Datadog internally. We think it's a great. It's one of the only SaaS tools we love, frankly. And the CISO Cloud also, they're also really, really good from a SaaS standpoint.
I don't like when you say statements like that.
Oh no, we love all SaaS places. That's
Yeah.
what that's everybody asks. They say, John Dietz, we need an opinion from you. What do you think about SaaS? I say, Fred wants me to love all of them.
Way better.
And so I
way
do.
better.
And so I do. That's right. Thanks,
But
Fred.
speaking of Datadog, we're not gonna explain to you like how it's working, like all the nooks and what's the expression? Nooks and
crannies. Yeah.
Nooks and crannies. But guess what? We did a live stream with someone from Datadog. So go on their YouTube channel, and I spoke with you remember blank right now. Rick Sherman, who is the manager of developer advocacy at Datadog, and he introduced us to Datadog for people that didn't know it that much, and showing us like pretty cool features too. So worth the time.
Absolutely. So this view right here, these 525 containers, this is stuff that we're looking at, right? This is why we find so much value out of Datadog. There's alternatives for sure. There's free alternatives as well, worth looking into. But we really like the way that Datadog has made everything easy for our stack, at least. So you can really simply create a filter, because when I installed with the GitOps catalog, you recall right afterward, I added my cluster name as a tag that I want on everything that's captured in that particular cluster. And I named it management. So if I just type in here, Kubernetes or kube cluster name equals management. So now we've reduced it from 500 containers just to the containers that are running in my management cluster. And if I break this down by namespace, then you can see what's running in that management cluster per namespace. And very similarly, if we looked at development, because we're looking at the management cluster right now, you can see all of those kube server API and cert manager and whatever it is that we had running in that cluster all in here. You can see, metrics on it. You can dive directly into logs from it, whatever. But we wanted to show you not the namespaces so much as the hosts. So when we're looking at the management cluster consists of these SIBO hosts that are just running in our cloud. And all of our pods have been distributed across those hosts. And when we look at only the development namespace, for example, oops, I include namespace. So when we look at development, you can see that the development resources have truly been distributed across the management cluster, even though we placed all of the resources in a tiny little compartment of the management cluster that's a namespace of development. So I just wanted to make sure that that was super clear to everybody, that when you create a virtual cluster, you're putting it in a distinct namespace in whatever cluster you're installing it to, in our case, management. However, the pods that you add to that cluster are all going to be distributed across the management cluster or whatever cluster you install it to, the same way it would as if it was installed into a real Kubernetes cluster. So even though I only have one node on my virtual cluster, I have 5 nodes available to me in the management cluster that the pods that represent the pods of that node are allowed to jump across. But if I wanted to tear down a virtual node and exercise those activities, I'd be able to do so if you're into that like deep SRE type chaos engineering stuff. It's a super cool way to run your test cases and whatever. So that's really all I wanted to show in Datadog. I think a picture is sometimes worth 1,000 words in that regard. But yeah, cluster management, Fred, it's a big deal. We love it. You can create V clusters, you can create physical clusters, you can delete them. You can create a cluster that has Metaphor on it today just by running a simple Kubefirst launch up and then running an install. You're going to get clusters just like these, and that development cluster is truly going to have a Metaphor Kubefirst.boo. This is truly running in that development virtual cluster. And if you were to delete the cluster, this would disappear. And then you could add it right back, attach it to the development environment, and it would be back like that. So we think that it's super cool. It's the next evolution of GitOps for sure. We've spent years trying to get to the finish line on it. We're just barely over the finish line. We have a whole bunch more that we want to do, but we did achieve MVP. And the team and the project is just elated about the results. So we're dying for people to check it out. And that's it for my show on the demo, Fred.
And we just got great feedback from Halleck saying new UI for cluster management looks great. So we're going to be sure to share the feedback with Donna and the front-end team, who did an amazing job to move the console application to the next level. So with that said, John, we talked about a lot of things. We demoed a lot of things. So 2.3, we're talking now about what I would say, quote unquote, a real management cluster. Now we're thinking about like workload cluster with the option to create multiple cluster, but also physical and virtual cluster. Right now, virtual cluster available on all the clouds except Key3D. And physical clusters available on Civo, but we're going to add this to the other public cloud very, very soon. We have the addition of environment. We're now using Crossplane under the hood. Did I miss something? I'm kind of like trying to do as a quick recap of like everything. CLI overhaul, like we revamped the CLI, nicer CLI, easier for us to maintain, which is also a nice feature. Like maybe not for the users, but trust us, for us, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing for the end users too. I mean, bugs are bugs. When you can get rid of 40% of your code base, you just have less bugs. So
exactly. So a lot of stuff. As John said, we are people with thick skin in the sense that, like, first, before that, even like we welcome feedback, but we welcome every type of feedback. So tell us the truth. Tell us what's your experience with the new version. As John said, it's a MVP, so you may hit some bump in the road. We put some features aside that we really wanted in 2.3, but like we also really wanted to release. So there was things that's going to come with patch release very, very soon. So we're still in release mode. I can tell you that even if we release like a big chunk of what we wanted to do, we're still in release mode because there is still a lot of great work to be done. But we're super proud of what we've done so far. So with that said, for the people, like we seem to have a lot of fans here that already know the project, but still want to highlight that we demoed with Civo today. So the new 2.3, the physical cluster, the workload cluster is working on Civo, but you still get the previous experience on AWS and DigitalOcean, Vultr, and Google Cloud. But with the addition of virtual cluster, which is also pretty cool. And as I said, the physical cluster will come really quickly. As a reminder, AWS, Civo, and Key3D, they're production ready. We have DigitalOcean, Vultr, and Google Cloud in beta. But again, we're fixing every release, every patch release. We're fixing things in those clouds. So really soon, I know I'm saying that for like weeks now, but you know, the life of a startup with like limited resources, we try to do everything. We would love to do everything, but it's not always possible. But it's coming in the right direction. As always, try it now. We want your feedback. If you have any question, it's on the Slack community. It's the best place to ask any question. But, you know, her TFM, you have the docs. You can check the docs. It's there. If something is missing in the docs, same thing as the product, I won't get annoyed. Actually, I really love when people tell me that there's something. Actually, I I'm not proud that there's something missing in the docs, but I love when someone tell me, because again, that's the only way that we can improve the docs. So please, please, please let us know. On that note, John, any last word about today's?
Yeah, I do have just one last word. I don't usually bring the whole team into the live stream business, but the Kubefirst team worked tremendously hard. I know we were a little behind schedule getting 2.3 MVP out the door. It's only because it was a monster, and we had the most enormous effort I've ever seen from a small group of engineers to pull off MVP. And just wanted to extend a little bit of gratitude to a really hardworking group of engineers to pull off MVP, get something out the door so we can start soliciting feedback from our users. And we're excited for the patch releases. But to the Kubefirst team, sincerely, I appreciate every late night, every weekend, all of it to get this thing out the door.
No, I mean, amazing work. And it's also great because we felt the pressure, like we put some pressure on us, like to release, because we want to move forward. We're excited about this, but we had some what I would call love pressure from the community. Like we know some people were like nearly refreshing the repo, like or like updating like homebrew like every day to look like if we release. And you know what? That's awesome. It means that you care, and hopefully you have a great experience, or you're waiting for a fix, something like that. But that's just great. So continue to show that you care, continue to share the feedback with us, and this is the kind of team we are. It's just amazing to have that community, having the people that care about the product, that give feedback, and that we try to help you as much as possible with your questions. So quite amazing. So with that said, John, I have a question for you.
Let's do it. What do you got?
Why is sorry, I'm tired. Why is web developers' boat always sinking?
Why is a web developer's boat always sinking, Fred?
Because they have too many anchors. Yeah. Yeah, this is how we do live stream here. So, on those beautiful, priceless words of mine, I will tell you, have a good rest of the day, and hopefully have an amazing experience with 2.3. We hope you are as excited as we are, and see you in 2 weeks.
I'll see everybody.